And I was just hoping, Dr. Ravi, if you'd be able to tell us something. You've done a lot of interesting work with satellite data on Indian growth, spatially disaggregated over the last 10 or 15 years. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about that, and then what you think about this interplay between environmental degradation and sort of spurring in economic growth.
So what I'll do is very quickly, I'll very quickly talk about how fast the country is growing, and not by using the standard metrics which we do, which is GDP growth. And the GDP growth numbers also come from aggregation of firm level data or by looking at survey data. So for a change, what we do is, and we're always looking at new kinds of data to see what can we measure and how disaggregated can we measure growth at, what is the level at which we can pick up. So the latest, most exciting data, and this to the scholars in the room, particularly the younger scholars, is something called the Global Human Settlement Layer data set. This is from the European Commission. This is extremely high resolution data. So in fact, in some cases, it goes as high resolution as 10 meters into 10 meters. We, of course, in this paper, we look at 100 meters into 100 meters. For us, that actually does serve the purpose. What we do look at is what's the rate of growth across the country of built up surface. So anything that is constructed, it's roads, it's residential, it could be a toilet, it could be commercial, anything that is, or a tank, anything that is built will be measured in this data. This is the pace at which the country has grown in the last 10 years. So the graph on the left is from 10 to 15, and 15 to 20 is the graph on the right. This is showing an 18% increase. So first of all, what you're seeing is, unlike a base effect, the country has been growing at beyond its long-term average pre-90. From 2000 onwards, the growth has only kept up, the phase of exponential growth that we call. But there is no base effect as such that is setting it. That it's not like we are beginning to slow down if you measure it. It's only getting faster. Now, where exactly is this growth happening? To those of you who know and who have studied the map, which I just showed you, you could have guessed. But sometimes it's nice to just look at what is the disaggregated impact. And this graph basically tells you that the most amount of construction that is happening is in the least constructed areas of the country, which means it is the most remote, the rural areas that is having the fastest growth rate in terms of built up area. Now, beyond a parliamentary constituency, you also begin to look at districts. And again, you find the same. In fact, this is the last 5 years. Compare that with the previous 5 years and the previous 5 years. There has been a huge jump. Again, looking at inequality results, you are seeing across districts. Now, India is a big country. We have 542 parliamentary constituencies. That's the first result. We have 800 districts, close to 800. We have 6,000 sub-districts. So you want to continue to look at this growth number at highly disaggregated numbers to really get a sense of where is a lot of this construction or built up happening. Again, if you look at districts, you get the same results. Sub-district, these are beautiful graphs. It's telling you it's inclusive. In fact, the highest growth is happening in your subdivisions, which had very little construction. Again, it tells you the same when you look at the 6,000 subdivisions, that significantly higher amount of growth. In fact, the average is around 6.5%, 7%. That's the annualized growth in the built-up area. Much, much faster than what you saw from 5 to 10 and 10 to 15. So there's no base effect setting in as far as construction and built-up areas in the country is concerned. But because it's a very large country, and at the end of it, we have to be mindful of the fiscal constraint. Indian fiscal situation is not just of the federal government, which is what most of the focus is on. It's very important to look at what is the fiscal health of the states. Because when you look at a lot of the environmental policies, the kind of investment that local states are making, the kind of incentives they're giving, the kind of policies they enact, to a great extent drives what is happening in the state. So this particular graph, it tells you how indebted are states. And the red line is an average of all the states. By the way, the rank ordering of the states here is in terms of the fastest growing state to the slowest growing state in the last 20 years. So you find Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Haryana, Kerala, etc. And at the bottom, you have Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. What you see is that we have some states which are they have an excess burden in terms of debt. You look at Kerala, you look at West Bengal, you look at Punjab. It's no wonder that most of the renewable push that we are seeing across the country is really a phenomenon of 6 states of the country. It's not happening all over the place. It's happening in Gujarat, it's happening in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh. Those are the only regions where you are seeing this kind of a transition happen. And it's because of the fiscal situation in the state. If you look at the capital outlay, how much are the states actually investing in new infrastructure, which is a very good proxy for long-term growth? Which are the states that are going to continue to see long-term growth? Again, just blue bars way above the red, which is an average. So just look at the amount that Gujarat is investing. Just look at the amount Haryana, you look at Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. In fact, in all of these, Odisha really stands out because it's nowhere close to being the richest or the fastest growing. But these are very progressive states which are investing tremendous amount of money for future growth. Now, here is the story of Punjab. This is showing the per capita income, and these are all real. All right, so it's adjusted for state inflation. What has happened in the last 20 years in India? We have not witnessed this in the past, which is our richest state has actively been deindustrialized. Now, remember, India is trying to do this Make in India. We want to make manufacturing, again, a very large part of our growth. Therefore, industrial policy is being enacted in different forms. But we do have a state like Punjab, which is actually seeing active deindustrialization in the last 20 years, which means almost all the industry of Punjab has moved to the neighboring states of Haryana, Rajasthan. Many have actually moved to areas like Telangana and Tamil Nadu, further south. Now, it's interesting because this is almost like a natural experiment. Haryana and Punjab, in fact, they were hyphenated. You often spoke of them together. 18 years back, Punjab was richer than Haryana. Today, an average Haryanavi is 1.5 times richer than an average Punjabi. That's the kind of differences that you're seeing in the growth of this state, right? And of course, this particular study is about the limits of cross-subsidization. That it's not an infinite. You cannot continue to cross-subsidize agriculture, the kind of depletion that Anant was speaking about. The over-subsidization of agriculture at the expense of charging very high to industry meant that over time, the revenue of the state, because agriculture is not taxed, the revenue just kept shrinking. Most of its industry have therefore moved to the neighboring states because it's not sustainable. So internal growth also happens in terms of the state pushing certain sectors. And agriculture has its limits if done the way what we have in the case of Punjab. Now, of course, this is all India, which means everyone is growing. There's a lifting of the tide. So in the 20 years that you have, every state has grown. It's just that Punjab is missing out compared to the other states. Now, what is happening alongside the growth variations across state is we have a major push of what we call saturation. The saturation policy in India basically is all amenities, basic amenities to all Indians everywhere in the country. And this is one example of electricity. And this is not government data. In fact, it's very seldom that we look at government data because administration has its own point of view and its data collection. We almost always depend on survey data or alternate data. What is this telling you? The NFHS, National Family Health Survey, tells us that within a span of 5 to 6 years, between 2014-15 and 1921, this is for the poorest quintile, so the bottom 20% of the population. Access to electricity has increased from 53 to 86%. And this has happened for all demographics, whether you look at Muslims, Hindus, general, OBC, SC, ST, whatever. Regardless of how you cross-cut the data, geographic variations, religion, social categories, every household now has access or growing access to these basic amenities. That does have implications for not just the fiscal, but the environment itself. This is showing, on the x-axis, it's the reduction in neonatal mortality rate, how many babies survive beyond 28 days of live birth. And the y-axis is showing increase in real per capita GDP. What you're seeing in the first quadrant are, in fact, of course, I might have to move this just to. If you look at the first quadrant, Gujarat has actually increased 300% real. Tamil Nadu, 240%. Are you seeing the extent of economic growth in these states? But these are also the states that have actively reduced neonatal deaths. But at the same time, if you look at the third quadrant, you are seeing states which are continuing to struggle with development and growth. In fact, the interesting case is of Assam and Punjab, which you see in the fourth quadrant. They are doing well developmentally because Punjab actually was a rich state. But economically, they're struggling. They all fall below the all India averages. So policy making is no longer at the national level in a lot of these things. This is what we call precision policy making. In fact, 8 states in India have already attained the Sustainable Development Goal for maternal mortality rate, which is 70. 7 states contribute today more than 71% of infant mortalities in India. 10 states have already attained the infant mortality rate targets for Sustainable Development Goals. That is the reason we constantly talk about aspirational districts and now aspirational blocks. The problems are highly localized and therefore the solutions also need to be localized. There's very little policy making in a lot of these areas that Delhi does, right? A lot of it is localized. And this is my final slide because this is an energy conference as well. While we talk about environment, the left side graph is showing per capita what is the consumption of energy. And this has only escalated since 2015. Huge, because it's a growing country. We are less than $3,000 per capita per year. So it's a young country, it's a fast growing country. It's a country that has just come out of poverty. We are very hungry when it comes to energy. But there is a uniqueness to India's energy use. If you look at the right side graph, if we compare ourselves with other major economies, and I don't mean smaller economies, more homogeneous economies like Bangladesh, Vietnam, etc., which are dependent on 1, 2, 3 sectors. India is very large, it's very complex. If you look at the import as a percentage of our total energy use, then you're seeing that while the US brought down its imports from 30% or so to now single digits, China has stabilized its energy imports as a percentage of its total energy use to around 15%. We continue to grow. So energy security is one of the biggest concerns on the table today. In fact, that should help you appreciate India's stand when it came to the Russia-Ukraine war as well. Energy for us is a very, very of strategic great importance. And we do not possess high quality energy. In fact, Indian coal is not of good quality. We have limited supply of natural gas. Our dependence, therefore, on imports is going to continue. And this should help you understand why the push towards renewables. Of course, it's good for climate. You will often hear the Prime Minister say, we cannot grow the way the OECD countries did. It would be terribly irresponsible for our future generations. We have to grow in a more clean way. But that means combining your energy security needs with also what is environmentally desirable. Therefore, major schemes like lifestyle for environment, these are behavioral concerns. You want to change the way people behave. But they all have impact, but none of them can match the extent that your renewable push, if firm after firm or industry after industry really makes the renewable push. But like I mentioned in the beginning of the speech, all India phenomenon in this case is not seen. The major push for renewables is really happening in 6 of our states. Other states remain not even a work in progress right now for us. We really have to sort of begin talking about energy mix and particularly towards renewable. So for us, it's a major objective on the table. And as we discuss some of the newer ideas and innovations, particularly from this conference, bear in mind that you do have to combine and balance development with growth, and anything that you that has relevance, particularly empirical for India, we will be watching. We'll be eagerly consuming what you produce. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Mansoor.